Hello, everybody, and welcome back to what is going to be a special episode today. So, you might have noticed that there is no intro, and that is because this is not an episode of Demi-God discussion, as it is just me today. Unfortunately, our schedules could not line up, and we have not been able to talk about the first 10 chapters of The Battle of the Labyrinth, which is our next episode that's going to come out. So for right now, I thought I'd do something a little bit, I didn't want us to miss another recording. I didn't want to go another 4 weeks without an episode. So I thought I'm going to take today and I'm going to read the first chapter of a book called The Norse Myths, Stories of the Norse Gods and Heroes Vividly Retold by Dr. Tom Birkett. So, I got this book at a Barnes & Noble's a little while ago, and I've read it, I love it, and even though Greek mythology is what initially got me into my love for mythology, I believe my favorite myths come from Norse mythology. And that has to do for a multitude of things. I mean, obviously you have Marvel Comics with Thor, but then you have different interpretations. For some of my Percy Jackson fans out there, you know that one of the side series is Magnus chasing the gods of Asgard, and I love that series. And the new God of War games take inspiration from Norse mythology, which I love these new God of War games. So I think all of that really added up to my love of Norse mythology. So I'm going to skip the introduction. It's basically just letting you know how some of these myths are presented and a couple other things, Something that I have to say is that these stories are how can I put this? They're wonderful, but they are heavily Christianized, I would say. The only two sources of knowledge I believe that we have of Norse mythology are the Prose Edda and the Poetic Edda, which were around after the Christianization of northern Sweden, like Norway, Finland, like that area after those conquests. So we don't really have a lot of the original myths, as they say. One of the first thing off the top of my head would be the golden apples of Norse mythology, which Idun's apples, which I don't believe the people in Norway had apples. But with all that out of the way, we're going to start with chapter 1, the creation of the world. We have let's see here. This episode will not be too long. The first chapter only goes on for some pages. We start off with a quote. It was early in time when Ymir settled. There was neither sand, nor sea, nor cooling waves. Earth was not to be found, nor the skies above. The gap was yawning. There was no grass anywhere. This is from the Prophecy of the Seeress. Genunga Gap. The gap was yawning. There was nothing there, but there was a lot of nothing, and it was waiting. How long had the gap been there? There was no way of knowing. Time didn't pass, because there is no way to mark it passing. There is no sun, there is no moon. There are no stars, no earth or sky or sea or sand, and there is no up and no down. The name of this place was Genunga Gap, and nothing and everything was there. Rivers begin to run. They flow from somewhere else, from the icy realm of Niflheim, and they emerge in the darkness at the spring called Hvirgelmir, which is where all rivers come from. The spring is full of serpents which writhe and churn, and their poison mixes with the water to form the 11 rivers known as Elivagar. As these rivers drain into Ginnungagap, ice congeals on the water, and before long, or after forever, there's no way of counting, the void is frozen over. A poisonous drizzle hisses through the air, and as it settles, it turns to frost. Frost fills the emptiness. Niflheim is as cold as coldness itself, but there's another place beyond the void, called Muspelheim, and it is as hot as fire. Sparks from Muspelheim warm the edge of Ginnungagap, and as the ice melts, a warm mist drifts towards the center of the void. Where the ice and fire meet, it is as temperate as a windless day in spring. Life begins to rouse itself from the meltwater and the venom and the mist. The name of the first being is Ymir, and it is both man and woman and the ancestor of all giants in the world. The first couple, a giant and giantess, squeeze themselves out of Ymir's sweaty armpit as the great being sleeps. Then, both the giant's legs come together, and in the sweat between them, they spawn a son. This is how the long line of frost giants begins. Ymir would find it hard to survive in that misty nothingness, if it wasn't for Adhumla the cow and her milk. Adhumla has no grass to eat, but she licks the salt from the frost of Ginnungagap, and that is how she keeps herself alive. There's more. Adhumla likes to lick one patch of frost in particular. She runs her tongue patiently across the rime, and eventually a patch of hair appears. The next day, a head emerges from the ground, and on the third day, Adhumla licks the body of a man free from the frost. This beautiful man is named Buri. He is the first god. Buri has a son called Bor. Bor marries Besla, the daughter of a giant called Bolthorn, and this will be the first of many marriages between gods and giant women. Bor and Besla have 3 boys together. Their names are Odin and Vili and Ve, and they will make the world. The killing of Ymir. Odin and his brothers needed building materials. There wasn't much in Ginnungagap except for the mists and the rime-covered rocks, so the 3 brothers murdered the giant Ymir, broke its body into pieces, and used the giant's flesh and bones to make the world. Ymir bled so much that all of Ginnungagap was flooded, and all the giants drowned, except for Ymir's grandson Bergelmir and his wife, who rode at the deluge floating in a trough. The gods didn't let Ymir's blood go to waste. They used it to enclose the world with the great ocean, which is so huge that most people think that it is impossible to cross. Even after surrounding the world with water, they still had a few drops left over to fill the lakes and pools on land, and some of them are very deep indeed. The gods made the earth with its hills and valleys from Ymir's flesh. They raised steep cliffs and mountains from its bones, and they used the giant's broken teeth to fill the seashores and the mountain passes with stones and grit. Odin and his brothers also found maggots twitching blindly in Ymir's corpse. The gods gave these creatures consciousness and wisdom and the love for crafting precious things, and they became the dwarves. Dwarves still live in the rocks and under the mountains of the earth, deep in Ymir's flesh. Next, the gods lifted Ymir's skull into Ginnungagap to form the great dome of the sky. To hold up the skull, the gods set a dwarf at each corner. These 4 dwarfs are named North, South, East, and West, and they keep the sky from falling down. At this time, the heavens were empty. The sun did not know where she had a hall. The stars did not know where their place was. The moon did not know his potential. But the gods set everything in order. They fetched sparks from the burning realm of Muspelheim and threw them high into Ginnungagap to create the stars. They fixed the planet's course and set the position of the sun and the moon in the sky. To measure out the years, they appointed a new moon and called in the tides. They gave names to nighttime and her children, calling them morning and midday, afternoon and evening. From then on, it was possible to tell the time of day and the passing of the seasons and the years. The gods wasted nothing in their creation of the world. They threw Ymir's brains up into the sky to form the billowing clouds. They used the giant's bristling hair to make the trees, and they even put the eyelashes to use as a great wall to mark out and protect the world. This enclosure they called Midgard, our Middle Earth. It was a beautiful world they had created from such a violent start. The creation of night and day. The surviving giants were banished outside Midgard to the mountains and the iron forests on the shores of the encircling sea. One descendant of Ymir made his home in the mountains, and his name was Narfi. He had a daughter called Night, who was dark like most of her family. She was married 3 times to 3 very different husbands. The first husband was called Naglfargi, and they had a son together who was named Prosperity. Her second marriage was to Anar, and they had a daughter called Earth, who was sometimes called the sister of Prosperity. Night's third and final marriage was to Delling, the Shining One, and this was a far superior match for Night, as Delling was not a giant, but a descendant of the gods. Their son was a beautiful child, truly eye-catching, and clearly belonging to his father's family. His parents called him Day. Little of this escaped Odin. Before the boy was fully grown, Odin came and abducted Night and Day from their home, and gave them each a horse and a chariot to ride through the sky. The giantess Night rides ahead, pulled by a horse called Frostmane, and the foam from the horse's bit falls to earth each morning and is called the Dew. Everyone has seen it, sprinkled on the grass in the early morning before the sun has warmed the fields. Day follows his mother in a chariot pulled by Shining Mane, and the brightness of the horse lights up the whole sky and the earth below. Mother and son follow each other on an endless journey through the heavens, always traveling at the same speed under the careful eye of Odin. The Golden Age. Midgard was made, and the gods and giants had their appointed realms, and trees and grass carpeted the land of Ymir's flesh. Now that the world was protected from the giants, the gods turned their energies to the creation of the finer things in life. First, they built great wooden temples high above the plains. Next, they timbered halls for shelter, and they set up workshops so that smiths could fashion tools and work precious metals into precious things. There is no limit to the gold found at that time across the world, and the gods furnished their halls with golden tables laid with golden plates and bowls. The forges rang with the bright sound of hammers, and the forest resounded with the tick-tock of axes felling trees. The gods met regularly on the plain of Idaval to share in the wealth, pass laws and judgments, and to allot bright dwellings to the shining gods. But they weren't always busy with building and smithing and making precious things. They also had time to sit back and enjoy what they had created, to play a game of taffel in the meadows with beautiful golden gaming pieces. This was the golden age enjoyed by all the gods. So there were days of leisure in the first age of world before the giant woman came. But there were still no people to enjoy the land or to share in the new wealth. One day, Odin and his brothers were walking along the seashore, and they came across 2 pieces of driftwood, one of ash and one of vine. The logs looked oddly like a man and a woman. The brothers dragged the driftwood up the shore and puzzled over their lifelike appearance. Were these crude likenesses the work of dwarves who loved to craft and to carve? The brothers decided that these curious lumps of wood should be given life. Odin approached first and gave them breath. Vili gave them consciousness and the ability to move. And Vi gave them their complexions, their speech, their hearing, and their sight. The 3 gods then offered the humans clothing to protect their living skin against the sun and the salt spray blowing off the sea, and they named the man Ask and the woman Embla. They were given a home in Midgard within the protecting wall, and from them all people are descended, right up to this day. The poets still call women bright birches of gold, and the men apple trees of battle. Humankind began as driftwood, and men and women have a close affinity with trees. These things are not forgotten. 2 of the descendants of Ask and Embla were put to work by the gods early in the days of the world. Mundilferi was a man who was blessed with 2 exceptionally beautiful children. a boy the proud father named Mani, and a radiant daughter he named Sol. The gods were angered by the father's arrogance in naming his children after the real sun and moon. So they stole the beautiful brother and sister away and set them in the heavens to drive the horses that pull their namesakes through the sky. Sol is in charge of the chariot of the sun, and Mani is in charge of the chariot of the moon. The horses that pull the sun are called Avark, who is awake early, and Alsvin, who rides very quickly across the sky, and they have runes engraved on their ears and their hooves. The sun's rays are as hot as a furnace, and to travel so close to it would be extremely uncomfortable if it weren't for the bellows the gods fasten to the horses' shoulders. These bellows are called iron cold, and they keep the horses cool. Odin also sent 2 children up to join the chariot of the moon. Their names are Bil and Hijuki, and they had just been to collect water from a well when Odin had caught up with them and snatched them away. They are still carrying the pole and bucket behind them as Mani rides his chariot across the night sky, and you may catch sight of them on the surface of the moon as it passes by. Sol would love to stop once in a while to rest her horses, but every day she races at full pelt across the sky as if in fear for her life. And she has good reason to be afraid, because the loud wolf Skoll is running at her heels, and one day he will catch her. But it is not the time to speak of this. Another wolf, called Hati, runs in front of the sun and tries to catch the moon. This will also happen. Hati also goes by the name of Moonhound, and he will spray the heavens with blood from fallen men and swallow the moon in the violent days when the sun loses its brightness and the winds howl across the world. But it is too early in the years to tell this tale. The world is freshly made, and Ragnarok is just a rumor in the distance, like thunder rolling in the mountains of far-off Jotunheim. And that is the end of chapter 1, which I believe I had set the name of, in case I didn't chat yet, The Creation of the World. So a shorter episode today, just me reading the Norse Myths. Hopefully you all enjoyed. I apologize for much of the background noise that is going on. I'm recording this the day that this is supposed to come out, so this was last minute. We honestly were not able to find much time, and I've been busy the past week, so I'm recording this a bit late. If all goes well and with a little bit of luck, 2 weeks from now, the new episode will be out. And we haven't been consistent at all in our release schedule. So to make up for it, my plan is at least to have the next 3 episodes come out weekly. And those 3 episodes will be the first 2 focusing on the Battle of the Labyrinth. And then I believe it's the Demi-God files after that. And then we'll go back to a regular bi-weekly schedule with The Last Olympian. And after that, we'll be done with the first series for Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, excluding Chalice of the Gods. But that doesn't come until much later. So, in case you haven't noticed, we're doing this by release order of the books. So, I believe I've mentioned that before. Well, with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed me reading. Hopefully, it wasn't too bad. And if you guys want to hear me read more of this, let me know. Send me a message on Instagram at Demi-God Discussion or at our email, demigoddiscussion@gmail.com. Send us an email there. I have the TikTok up already. I haven't posted any clips on there, unfortunately. And I'm still working on the YouTube and posting full clips on YouTube there. Not full clips, full videos. And hopefully that will be done soon. And I'm trying to be more active on Instagram. And on Threads, obviously. I'm much more active on Threads than on Instagram. Only because I hate Twitter. You guys know this. But, yeah. Randy is not here to do the send-off, so I mean, I will try to do it in this way, so hopefully this is good. So thank you guys for listening, and I'll catch you all next episode.
See ya.